The first time our school ever went into lockdown, I thought it was just another drill. We'd had them before, teachers locking doors, turning off lights, and telling us to stay quiet while we crouched beneath our desks. They usually ended with a laugh or a sigh of relief once the principal announced over the intercom that it was only practice. But this time, the silence felt heavier, the air colder, and something about the way my teacher's hands shook as she turned the lock told me this wasn't a drill at all. It was a Wednesday afternoon in late fall, and the sky outside the windows was already a deep shade of gray. We were halfway through history class when the announcement crackled through the speakers. "Attention, this is a lockdown. Teachers, lock your doors immediately." The tone was sharp, urgent, different from the calm rehearsals we were used to. Nobody laughed. Nobody even moved for a moment. Then, chaos. Chairs scraped, notebooks slammed shut, and everyone scrambled under the desks like they'd been trained to do. My teacher, Mrs. Larkin, switched off the lights so quickly the room was plunged into near darkness. Only the faint glow from the cloudy windows remained. Her breathing was uneven as she whispered, "Stay down. Don't make a sound." That was when I realized this wasn't fake. Something was happening. We could hear noises in the hallway. Heavy footsteps echoed down the corridor, slow and deliberate, as though whoever it was wanted us to hear them. They weren't the hurried steps of a teacher checking doors. They sounded wrong, almost like someone dragging their feet. Each thud against the tile floor made my chest tighten. A girl near me, Jasmine, had tears running down her cheeks. She buried her face in her arms to keep from sobbing out loud. Another kid squeezed his eyes shut and mouthed a prayer. I wanted to ask what was happening, but fear glued my tongue to the roof of my mouth. The only sound in the room was the faint creak of desks as students tried not to move. Then the footsteps stopped, right outside our door. My heart pounded so hard I thought whoever was out there would hear it. The classroom door had a narrow vertical window, and though I didn't dare lift my head, I could see the glow of a shadow moving across it. Someone was standing there, watching. Mrs. Larkin had crouched down too, her back against the cabinet, clutching a pair of scissors like a weapon. The veins in her hands bulged as she tightened her grip. We all stayed frozen, listening. The doorknob rattled. Softly at first, then more violently, like someone was testing it, trying to force it open. Jasmine gasped, and Mrs. Larkin quickly pressed a finger to her lips, signaling for silence. Finally, after what felt like forever, the rattling stopped. The footsteps started again, slower this time, fading down the hall. We didn't dare move. Every creak of the building made us flinch. Somewhere distant, we heard another door slam shut, followed by the faint sound of someone crying. Minutes dragged on like hours. My knees ached from crouching, but I didn't care. Nobody spoke. Nobody even dared to breathe too loudly. And then, suddenly, a different noise. This one faint, but close. It wasn't footsteps. It was humming. A low, tuneless hum coming from somewhere just beyond the door. Whoever it was hadn't left at all. They were right outside, waiting. The humming went on for several minutes, and then silence again. That silence was worse than the sound. It was the kind of silence that pressed against your eardrums, begging to be broken, but none of us moved. When the intercom finally came on again, it made us all jump. "Lockdown has ended. Resume normal activities." The voice was calm, but almost too calm, as if rehearsed. Mrs. Larkin didn't move right away. She just sat there, eyes locked on the door, waiting. Eventually, she whispered for us to stay put until she was sure. Later, we were told nothing. The school claimed it had been a precautionary measure, that there was no threat on campus. But I know what I heard. We all do. The footsteps, the rattling door, that awful humming. None of it was explained. And sometimes when I walk through those same halls alone, I swear I can still hear it. That low, chilling hum, echoing faintly, as if whoever was out there that day never really left. The second lockdown I experienced was during middle school, and unlike the first, this one came with whispers of something far darker. It wasn't just the fear of an intruder, it was the mystery of what none of us were ever supposed to know. It started on a rainy Friday morning. The sky was murky, thunder rumbling in the distance, and the mood in school was already heavy. Around third period, right as we were transitioning between classes, the alarm blared. This time, there was no intercom announcement. Just a shrill, piercing alarm that echoed down the corridors, instantly setting everyone on edge. Teachers shouted for us to get inside classrooms, doors slammed shut, and locks clicked one after another. I ended up in the science lab with 20 other students who weren't even in my class. The teacher, Mr. Rowland, rushed to lock the heavy door, then herded us to the corner behind the counters. The room smelled faintly of chemicals and wet coats from the rain. Nobody dared to talk above a whisper, but everyone wanted to know the same thing. What was happening? Through the blinds, I caught glimpses of flashing lights outside, police cars, several of them. The rain blurred the windows, but I could see figures moving quickly across the schoolyard. That's when my stomach dropped. This wasn't just another drill. Something real was happening. Mr. Rowland kept pacing, his eyes darting to the window every few seconds. He looked nervous, which scared me more than anything else. Teachers were supposed to be calm, to reassure us, but he couldn't even steady his hands. That's when we heard it, faint at first, then louder. A scream. It came from somewhere in the building, sharp and sudden, echoing through the halls. Several students gasped. One even covered her mouth to keep from crying out. Mr. Rowland froze, his eyes wide, but he didn't say a word. The silence afterward was unbearable. Minutes passed, though they felt like hours. Then came footsteps. Fast, pounding footsteps, like someone running. They grew closer, racing past our door. Whoever it was didn't stop, but we all heard it. Heavy boots slapping against the wet tile, then fading away. Suddenly the doorknob rattled. All of us shrank back instinctively. Mr. Rowland raised a hand, silently begging us to stay quiet. The knob twisted slowly, then stopped. We could hear breathing on the other side, slow, steady, deliberate. Someone was standing right there, separated from us by just a few inches of wood. Nobody moved. The only sound was the rain tapping against the windows and the faint hum of the fluorescent lights overhead. After what felt like forever, the breathing stopped. The footsteps started again, retreating down the hall. Some kids began to cry quietly. One of the older students whispered, "It's just a drill," but his voice shook so badly no one believed him. I pressed my back against the cold cabinet, my chest tightening, every nerve in my body on edge. Then the power went out. The lights flickered once, twice, then the whole room went black except for the faint gray glow from the storm outside. Someone gasped. Someone else whispered a curse. My own heart nearly stopped. Without the lights, every creak, every noise from the hall sounded magnified, as if the darkness itself carried threats we couldn't see. We stayed like that for nearly an hour, trapped, terrified, waiting. At some point the alarm stopped, replaced by an eerie silence. It was worse than the noise had been. Finally, the intercom crackled to life. "The lockdown is over. Remain calm. Classes will resume shortly." The voice was oddly flat, too calm for what we had just experienced. Mr. Rowland didn't unlock the door immediately. He waited, listening, his face pale in the dim light. Only after several minutes did he cautiously open it. The hallways looked deserted. No intruder, no danger, no sign of what had caused the lockdown at all. Yet the strangest part was the floor. Dark streaks smeared across the tiles as though something wet had been dragged along the hall. We were never given an explanation. The school sent out a letter saying it had been a security precaution. No mention of the scream, no mention of the police cars, and definitely no mention of what left those streaks on the floor. But I'll never forget the sound of that breathing on the other side of the door, slow and deliberate, as though whoever it was knew exactly where we were. The third and final lockdown I experienced still haunts me the most, not because of what I heard, but because of what I actually saw. It happened during my last year of high school, and even now, years later, the memory makes me question if everything that happened was real. It was late spring, just a few weeks before graduation. The day had been unusually hot, the kind of heavy, suffocating heat that made the air conditioners in the classrooms useless. Everyone was restless, desperate to be done with school for good. The announcement came during lunch. "This is a lockdown. Teachers, secure your classrooms immediately." At first, nobody moved. We all thought it was another drill. But the panicked tone of the vice principal's voice told a different story. Teachers rushed us out of the cafeteria, guiding us toward the nearest classrooms. My group ended up in the art room. The teacher locked the door, pulled the shades down, and ordered us to stay quiet. The room smelled of paint and clay, and half-finished sculptures stared at us from the shelves. We crouched on the floor, hearts pounding, waiting for something to happen. It didn't take long. The sound of sirens outside drifted through the walls. Then came the first bang, loud, metallic, like someone slamming a locker with all their strength. The noise echoed down the hallway, making several kids jump. Then another bang, closer this time. Whoever it was, they were moving toward us. The art room had a large glass window that looked out into the hall. Normally, it made the space feel open and airy. Now it felt like a death trap. Every student's eyes flicked to that window, terrified of what we might see on the other side. Then it happened. A figure walked past, not a teacher, not a police officer. Something about the way it moved made my stomach twist. Its walk was slow, jerky, unnatural, as though it didn't quite know how to control its own body. It stopped directly in front of the window. Even in the dim light, I could see its face, or at least what was left of it. Pale, stretched skin, eyes that looked too wide, too empty. It wasn't someone I recognized, not a student or anyone from the staff. It just stood there, staring in, tilting its head as if curious. One of the students, a boy named Kyle, let out a shaky whisper. "What is that?" The figure's head snapped toward the sound, and I swear it grinned. The teacher pressed a finger to her lips, signaling for silence, her face white with terror. Nobody moved. Nobody breathed. We all stared as the figure leaned close to the glass, fogging it with each breath. Then, without warning, it tapped the glass 3 times with long, bony fingers. The sound was sharp, unnatural, echoing through the silent room. I thought the glass would break. I thought we were done for. But after those 3 taps, it simply turned and walked away, disappearing down the hall. For what felt like forever, none of us moved. Then the intercom crackled again. "Lockdown has ended. Resume normal activities." The voice was calm, as if nothing strange had happened. But it wasn't over. When the teacher finally unlocked the door, we all rushed into the hallway. There were no police, no administrators, no explanation. The halls were empty, except for the marks. Smudged handprints streaked across the windows, higher than any student could reach. Long, thin streaks dragged across the walls, like claws had scraped them. That night, rumors spread like wildfire. Some said it was a homeless man who had wandered inside. Others claimed it was a prank pulled by seniors. but no prank could explain the way it looked or the way it moved. I've never seen it again, but sometimes when I walk past empty buildings at night, I think about those taps on the glass. I think about those empty eyes staring in like they were studying us. And worst of all, I wonder, what would have happened if Kyle hadn't whispered? Some things aren't drills. Some things can't be explained away with letters home or assemblies the next morning. And some things, once they've found you, never really leave. Even now I can still hear it. Tap, tap, tap.